Alright guys, in this video we're going to create our profile model, and this video is going to really let you know what our profiles are going to look like, because a model it's obviously it contains all the different fields that a profile will allow, will require, things like that. So let's open up our models folder and let's create a new file called profile, uppercase P, profile.js. And just like our user model, we're going to bring in Mongoose, bring in the schema. I can actually just copy that. And then let's create our schema. So we want to say const, and we're going to call this profile schema and set it to a new schema object. And pass in some curly braces here. Now we want to associate the user with the profile, okay? And it's a little weird what we're doing, where we have, like in Redux, we'll have our state and we'll have an auth state, which will have the user's email, ID, name, and avatar, but that's it. The rest of the stuff is going to go in the profile, okay, inside the state. And that's going to be things like the bio, the profile handle, because we want them to go to / whatever they choose as a handle for their profile, their company, website, all that stuff. But we do want to associate the avatar and everything that's in the user schema with that profile. So we're going to put that as a property here. We're going to say user, and then the type is actually going to be, what it's going to be is schema.types dot object ID. And what this is going to do is it's going to associate the user by its ID. Okay, now we need to reference the collection that this refers to, because we can refer any collection. Obviously the only other collection we have in our database is users, and that's what we want here. Okay, so in addition to that, we're going to have a handle. Like I said, we want basically an SEO friendly URL for profiles, so they could go to devconnector.com or whatever the URL /profile / for instance, if I chose Brad Traversy as my handle, then they could go to profile / Brad Traversy and my profile would pop up. All right, so this is going to be a type, or have a type of string, and it is going to be required, even though we're doing our validation in our validation files like we did here with the login and register. So we will have one for profile as well, but we're still going to mark it as required here. And then I just want to give it a max of 40 characters. I don't want it to be longer than 40. All right, so we have kind of a double line of defense when it comes to validation. We have our validation we're going to create in here, and we also have Mongoose, okay? But our validation is going to handle it much more elegantly, and that's what we'll use to basically send the errors to the front end and so on. All right, so in addition to handle, we'll have company. So company, we'll say type string, and I'm not going to make company required, because they may not have a company, they may not have a job, but of course, you know, this is for developers. It doesn't mean you actually have to be working. Next will be website, which will have a type of string. Most of these are going to be strings, actually. Now, website, I'm not going to make required either. And that could be a company website or their own personal website, whatever. And we will have, when we have our front end form, we'll have kind of like info tips saying, you know, what this field is and what should go here and stuff like that. So location, I'm not going to make that required either. Some people may not want to put in their location. Status, now status is actually going to be a select. Of course here, whoops, style. Of course here it's going to be a string, but in our form it's going to be a select list, and it'll have options like, it'll have developer, junior developer, senior developer, student, instructor. I can't remember some of the other ones we're going to use. And we'll also have other if it's not listed. So this is actually going to be required, because they have to select something anyway. So we're going to say required true, because we want to know, you know, where in someone's career they are. All right, so let's see, skills. Now skills is actually going to be an array. So in Mongoose, what we want to do is we want to say type and then put some brackets in here, and we want to put in string because it's going to be an array of strings. Now the way that we're going to do this is in our form, they're going to be able to put comma separated values. So they'll put like HTML comma, CSS comma, PHP comma, and put all their skills. And then we're going to have logic that's going to take that CSV, those comma separated values, and turn them into an array and then insert them into the database. All right, so that's what we want to do. And this is required. All right, let's see. So next we want, and there are quite a bit of fields here. I want it to be a pretty in-depth profile. We're also going to have bio if they want to put like a little description about themselves or whatever, which will be a string, and it won't be required. Okay, we're also going to have GitHub username. Now, the reason I'm putting this is because I want to be able to show the person's GitHub repos, that their latest 5 repositories. We're actually going to be integrating this app with the GitHub API to get those repositories. And this I don't want to be required because if they don't want those to show, then they shouldn't have to. So we'll just say type string. All right, now we're going to start to get into the array properties such as experience. In our profiles, we want the user to be able to have multiple experiences, meaning jobs or any type of experience that has to do with web development. So let's say experience, and we're going to set this to a set of brackets, and then we want to put our fields in here. Okay, so it'll be an array of objects, and the object will have a title, which will be a string. We'll say required true. All right, so in addition to that, let's do company. Wait a minute, I didn't do that right. Title. This is not right. Hold on. We want to do title and then type, just like all the other fields. It's just an embedded object there. All right, so company, we'll say type string, and required is true. Let's do, actually, you know what I'll do is just copy this. So next one is going to be location of the job or experience. And the location I'm not going to make required. And you can, of course, you can change some of this stuff if you want it to, or if you don't want certain things to be required. That's okay. Let's see, but you'll have to obviously make up for it in the validation files as well. So we want a from. I'll just paste in this, and we're going to call this from. So basically, you know, when they started, and the type is going to be a date. Okay, and that's going to be required. And then we're going to have a to date, which will also obviously be a date. And I'm not going to make this required because I want them to have a checkbox that says current, because it could be a job that they're still working at, and in that case on our profiles it's going to say the from date dash now, okay, like they're still working there. So we do want a value called current. Are they still currently working there? And this is going to be a Boolean. Okay, so this is going to be a true or false. So let's say Boolean, and we'll set the let's actually give it a default value of false. Okay, so by default it's false. And then finally we just want a description. type string, and it's not required. They don't have to do a description. And that's it for experience. So now we want education, which will also be an array of objects. So I'm going to copy this whole experience array with all these types. I'm going to put a comma here and paste it in and change this one to education. And it's going to have a lot of the same stuff as far as the from, to, current. We'll keep all that. But we want to change title to school, which will be required. We want a degree. Okay, what kind of degree do they have? We want the field of study, and we'll make that required as well. And then we have from, to, current, and description. So that's good. All right, so that's experience and education. Next thing I want is social, because I want them to be able to put in their social media links and have those on their profile. So we'll have YouTube. They want to put their YouTube channel, and obviously these aren't required, but we'll say type string. And let's see, let's actually just copy this down a few times. So we'll have Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. Okay, so this will be Twitter. Oops. Facebook. Let's do LinkedIn, which is very important for any professional site. Instagram. Okay. So that's the social, and then the last thing I want is just the date. So let's say date, and that will obviously have a type of date. And then we want to give it a default of date.now, which will just automatically put in the current date or the current timestamp. All right, so that's it for our profile. I know it's quite a bit, but now let's go ahead and just do module exports, profile, and we want to say mongoose.model. So we're creating a model, and let's call it profile. And we need to add in the profile schema. And that's it. Let's save that. Okay, we shouldn't get any errors or anything. Yeah, so that looks good. Hopefully I didn't make any typos or anything. If I did, we'll find out later. That's one thing about my courses, guys. If I make like a little mistake, I'm not going to go and re-record. And the reason I do that is not because I'm lazy, but because it's just stuff that happens in real life. And I don't like making cookie cutter tutorials that are not realistic, because you're going to make mistakes. You're going to run into errors. So hopefully, you know, I don't catch too much slack for any of that kind of stuff. A lot of people seem to appreciate it anyways. Alright, so that's going to do it for this video. In the next one, we're going to start on our profile routes.